Welcome back to the Taikin Ramen channel. In today's episode, we're going to be going over rolled Chashu pork. Every beautiful bowl of ramen deserves a nice meat sitting on top, and Chashu pork, especially rolled into a spiral, is my favorite. And yes, we will be playing with fire. You're going to start by getting a slab of pork belly. You can typically find this at a grocer, but you might need to go to a butcher. And we're going to be trying to roll this thing into as perfect a circle as we can before we cook it. This all starts with getting the dimensions on the pork belly right. You can see this slab I have is about 1.5 inches thick and 8 to 9 inches long.
Hey, phrasing!
Typically the roll needs to be about 3 times as long as it is thick. I'm going to do a sample roll here. You can see that to cut it into the shape of a circle, I'm going to be able to get actually 2 rolls out of this one slab of pork. I'm cutting it at an angle because, as you'll see when I roll this piece, that angular cut is going to help to turn this cut of pork into more of a circular shape. Now we're going to tie everything in place before we cook it. I'm just using basic yarn here. I'm going to tie 1 square knot on one end of my pork roll. I take the excess yarn and move it beneath the pork log, and then I pull that excess underneath the loop that I just made. I cross it over top and then cinch it down, and pulling tight, I can now repeat this process all the way down the pork roll to have one string with a final knot that ties everything together. I'm going to go back to the beginning end and tie 1 more knot there just to make sure everything is nice and secure. You can add extra knots as required if any part of your pork roll doesn't look secure. And now I'm going to repeat this whole process with my second pork roll. Alright, now that we've put a bow on that and we've got our 2 pork rolls together, we're going to move on to making our braising liquid. Take 1 leek and remove the roots, and then we're going to make a cut lengthwise down the stem. This is going to allow us to peel back all the layers.
Ogres are like onions. They stink? No! Layers! Onions have layers.
Inside these layers, you'll find dirt grows into the plant pretty aggressively. So we're going to need to separate all these layers and then move them over to the sink for a good wash. Once those are washed, we can start conglomerating our other ingredients. In addition to the chopped leek, we're going to need 8 cloves of garlic, 4 inches of peeled ginger, 1 cup of brown sugar, 2 cups of soy sauce, and 1 cup of sake. I'm using Gekkaikon today. Into a Dutch oven, we're going to drop all of our ingredients in. Don't forget to drop your ginger like Chuck Norris with 2 grenades. And on top of all of these ingredients, we're going to add about 8 cups of water, just to help dissolve the sugar and have enough liquid to cover our pork. We'll move our braising liquid onto the stove and set the stove to low. And now on a separate high-walled skillet, we're going to start heating in neutral oil. I'm using canola today. We're using just enough oil to coat the bottom of the skillet. We're going to put this oil on a medium heat, and once it's started shimmering and moving around, we're going to drop one of our pork rolls in and start the process of rotating the pork around in the oil. We're trying to crisp up that skin on the outside of the pork until it becomes a nice golden brown. I leave my pork in each position about 3 minutes at a time before moving it, just until I've achieved the desired color and texture. This will be really nice and crispy when we dig in. Once the outside has been crisped up, I move it into our Chashu hot tub, and then I repeat with the second pork roll, eventually moving it into the Chashu hot tub as well. Now I'm going to increase the heat until this whole situation starts to come to a low simmer. Then I'll put the heat to low and cover the pot. I'm going to revisit this Dutch oven once every 30 minutes to flip our pork rolls and make sure everything is cooking evenly. I'll come back every 30 minutes for 2 hours. At the end of 2 hours, I'm going to use this strainer to pull the pork rolls out They are very tender at this point, and metal tongs could easily cut through them. Then I cover them in some of the braising liquid and move to the refrigerator overnight. The next day you can see that this nice layer of fat has formed on the top of our pork. I'm going to save this because it's going to make for an amazing aroma oil later on if you desire. Now I'll fish out one of my pork rolls, get any leeks or ginger or garlic off, maybe dunk it a few times to clean it, and move it over to a cutting board for slicing. With a pair of scissors, I'm removing all of the string that we put on earlier and throwing that out. And now from either end, I'll start making slices about 1 centimeter thick. You'll notice the first few slices and the last few slices off a pork roll aren't necessarily good looking, not the sort of thing that you want to put on top of a bowl of really pretty ramen, but they make awesome toppings for scrambled eggs, fried rice, so absolutely do not throw those away. You can see here, I'm just cutting this like thick deli meat. I have no idea why this is so satisfying to watch, but whatever. And look at this beautiful round shape that we're able to achieve. I'll continue cutting till I get through the end of the log. And now we're ready to sear some of this pork up. On top of a trivet, put a baking sheet, and then your slices of pork. You can optionally season your pork at this time. I'm using little ichimi, and now I'm gonna grab my Iwatani butane torch.
Yeah, how do you have the time? How do you have the time to do that, though? I mean, I understand that it's not a big deal in terms of all the other things that you do, but how do you have time to do anything?
I mean, I didn't spend much time on this flamethrower. I mean, to be totally frank, it's actually just a roofing torch with an air rifle cover.
And hey, if Elon can do it, why not us? I'm gonna go ahead and start torching this pork down. At first the flame will be blue because there's no oil, but eventually the pork fat will start to leak out and you'll get this nice orange-yellow flame. We'll move the torch around so that we get that nice, even charring across the face of the pork. And once our pork is fully cooked, we can add it to any bowl to take something simple to something very elaborate and impressive. You might also play around with cooking this pork without the rolling step. That gives you access to different looks like this one. It all comes down to what you're interested in and what kind of aesthetic you're going for in the bowl. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully you learned some good stuff, or at least had fun playing with fire. It's been a pleasure having you. Please consider subscribing for more.